While Chuba Hubbard has been on the mend, Rico Dowdle has been setting franchise records the past 2 weeks here in Carolina, and many of you want to know, will Rico Dowdle be back in a Panthers uniform in 2026? I'll answer that question among other listener questions on this weekly Wednesday mailbag edition of Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. It is once again Wednesday, and what do we do? Every single Wednesday throughout the regular season here on Locked On Panthers, I answer your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. And how to get questions in for anyone who's new, who has not done it before, all you got to do, very simply, at me or DM me over on Twitter or Blue Sky at Julian Council. The same handle, both of those sites, at Julian Council. And after the game on Sunday against the Jets, after I've recorded, go ahead, hit me up with those questions for next week's edition of the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. Panthers are likely expecting to have Jalen Coker make his season debut up in New York on Sunday. How will that impact the wide receiver rotation? I have a question about that on the show. Do the Panthers, after winning back-to-back games, do they earn respect? Have they gotten respect from the NFL media? And where's the pass rush? And should the Panthers potentially be buyers at the deadline? But the number one question I have gotten has pertained around Rico Dowdle and his future here in Carolina and how things potentially are going to work out between him and Chuba Hubbard once Chuba is able to come back from a calf injury that's cost him the past 2 games, where Rico has been incredible. 389 yards rushing. He has been so good. And it makes you think, how on earth is this guy not a lead back somewhere in the NFL? And maybe, just maybe, it should be here in Carolina. And that leads me to Chris's question. And again, a lot of people have asked me about Rico, so it's not just Chris, but Chris, congratulations. I'm going to read the question that you sent me, mainly because it's short and sweet. Chris saying, with Rico Dowdle's sustained production, why on earth wouldn't the Carolina Panthers sign him to an extension? Carolina could have a 2-headed monster backfield with him and Chuba. Go back to last offseason, ahead of the 2024 season, when the Panthers used their second-round pick. Now they traded back, but then traded back up to select Jonathon Brooks out of the University of Texas, 46th overall. From that point in time on, we really salivated about the idea of having Jonathon Brooks and Chuba Hubbard be a dynamic duo in the backfield for years to come, potentially in Carolina, especially once Chuba signed a 4-year, $33.2 million contract the week the Panthers headed over to Germany to face off against the Giants. We looked even further into, oh man, Brooks is going to come back soon. Chuba just got extended for 4 years. Those guys, they can be the new smash and dash, the new double trouble 2.0 here in Carolina for the years to come. As we know, Jonathon Brooks, unfortunately, only played in 3 games. And in that final game he played up in Philadelphia last year, he retore his ACL in the same knee where it occurred 13 months prior when he was a junior at Texas, and he is out for the entirety of the season. And we'll see what he's able to do next year if he is, of course, still a Carolina Panther, because there are a lot of questions right now about the running back room here in Carolina. Now, 4 parts to this as far as why on earth wouldn't Carolina sign Rico Dowdle to an extension. Well, part 1 is, can we just let the season play out? It's been 6 games, and really it's been 2 weeks, 2 spectacular franchise record-breaking setting weeks of Rico Dowdle being the best back in the National Football League. Now, is he the best back in the NFL? Of course not. But the last 2 weeks, it's undeniable that he has been awesome. 389 rushing yards, a 58.5% rushing success rate, multiple touchdowns. I have loved his attitude, buckle up, and then going out there and having 239 yards from scrimmage, a franchise record in that game on Sunday, having 206 yards rushing prior to that against Miami, and not even being focused on what he had just done, but looking ahead to, oh yeah, that's Jerry. That's the Cowboys. This is a revenge game. I'm back home, and I'm going to stun on them. I love it. I've enjoyed it. As a fellow North Carolinian, someone who grew up in this state, I'm happy to see a guy put on for his state and play the way he has played over the last 2 weeks. And I guess put on for his region since he also played at South Carolina. And it's 2 states, 1 team here as the Carolina Panthers. So can we just let the season play out a little bit? Just enjoy what Rico's doing and think about the prospects of Chuba coming back in here and those guys really leading this offense moving forward. Because you don't need Bryce to throw for 200 yards if you're going to run for over 200 yards every single week. And if you're going to have backs like Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, especially right now, capable of doing the things he's done over the last couple of weeks. Now, another thing as far as why on earth wouldn't they extend him is they just extended Chuba Hubbard 4 years, $33.2 million up to $37 million. Last November, we haven't even gone a full calendar year to the last time the Panthers erroneously, might I add, paid a running back. Now, I was cool with it, considering where they were at that point in time. Plenty of questions about Bryce Young, about the offense, about the foundation and culture that they were trying to build here, and they're still trying to figure out what exactly their culture is at this point in time, nearly halfway through Dave Canales' second year as Panthers head coach. I was cool with it. I was in Germany. I was having a good time. I was in a good mood. So, okay, whatever. You sign a running back. I hate that on principle because Exhibit A, Chuba Hubbard goes down and Rico Dowdle goes nuts for 2 weeks and you barely paid him any money. So, did you need to extend him? Especially when I hear the story that Dave Canales told us on Monday that his former running backs coach there in Tampa had worked with Rico when Rico was on a practice squad in Dallas and felt like that was a guy to pursue one day. And that's a big reason why here in Carolina, they pursued Rico Dowdle. So you did not need to pay Chuba Hubbard the amount of money you paid him. Good for Chuba. Get your money. Absolutely. But damn, y'all, this is why I say federal minimum wage. You use them, you abuse them, and then you lose them. You don't have to pay them, especially if they're not Christian McCaffrey or if they're not Saquon Barkley. And so far, that's not going great this season for Philadelphia. You don't pay running backs, but the Panthers did. So that's another reason you don't need to double down on a mistake and pay another running back. My God, there's other parts of this team. We'll talk about it more later. The pass rush, where not great. You're number 1 in the league right now, rushing. That's awesome. But you've looked pretty good so far. And this is point number 3 with Trevor Etienne, who's come out there and finished these games. And this is actually a point that Kurt, one of our loyal listeners and watchers here of Locked On Panthers, he brought up the fact that at the end of the Miami game and the Dallas game on Sunday, Rico was cramping and had to come out of that game. So he hasn't been able to go the distance the last couple of weeks. Now, he hasn't been in the kind of shape to do that since last year in Dallas, so I understand that. But you've seen Trevor Etienne nearly broke one free for the go-ahead score and would have been the game-winning score there against Miami a couple weeks ago. Then he had, again, the opportunity to score a touchdown to end it, but he had to go down and be a good teammate, which good to hear that happened. But he's shown you some juice there. And, of course, Jonathon Brooks, we have no idea what the Panthers have in him next year and beyond. So that's another reason why on earth they wouldn't do that. And then Rico has shown so far last year, once Cowboys were done with all the old geriatric running backs, I mean that respectfully, of course, and the past 2 weeks, that he deserves an opportunity to be a feature back somewhere. Should have been in Dallas. It wasn't in Dallas. It's not going to be here in Carolina, I don't think, maybe for the rest of the year, because he's only on a 1-year deal that you use him, you abuse him, and then you lose him because you already have Chuba under contract for 3 years. You already have Trevor Etienne, and you also have Jonathon Brooks. So it's been fun. I get it. He's been really good, and hopefully when Chuba comes back, both those guys can continue to look really good, and that Rico can play at that level, and Chuba can match the play he played at last year here in Carolina. But right now, I ain't focused on paying Rico Dowdle. And y'all know I have no time, even though I just spent 8-9 minutes talking about this, when it comes to extending running backs, because, well, you extended one and then look at this guy who's stepping in and has looked better than the guy that you paid so far this season. So we'll see. I'm not in favor of it. I can't see a day I'm going to be in favor of it unless, like, he ends up setting an NFL rushing record. No, they don't need to do this. There's other parts of the team that they should be focused on this offseason. But again, it's 6 games in. Let's enjoy it and not be super concerned about his future in Carolina. Nick has a question about Rico Dowdle and just situation here, saying, when will Panther fans ever be happy about having depth/talent on this roster? Plenty of talk about trading Rico this week in the cesspool known as Twitter, but isn't it better to have talent right now as opposed to a draft pick that more often than not will wind up being a bust? P.S. Can we bully the Panthers into making the black helmets permanent next year? Now, the Panthers are 2-0. With those black helmets, beating the brakes off the Falcons and walking up against the Cowboys this past Sunday. Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, I did get a question last week on the mailbag that I did not read. Now, I read half of this person's question, but I did not read the part where they're saying, should the Panthers trade Rico Dowdle at the deadline? It's like, damn, bro. Man, just ran for 206 yards. You want to ship him off already? How about we wait to see Chuba Hubbard get healthy and then make a decision? But even then, after the last 2 weeks, no, you don't trade this man. You keep giving him the rock. You give Chuba the rock and you ride this thing. You have the number 1 rushing offense in the league. No reason at all to be wanting to trade away Rico Dowdle. So I think people are happy. They're just excited. They want to see a way to make this team better. And that one person, I guess these other people in the cesspool known as Twitter, are just wanting the Panthers to capitalize on a way that Rico's played so far the past 2 weeks and see if that can get them some good draft capital. I can't imagine it's going to get them anything other than like a day 3 pick. But yeah, I think he's been awesome. I'm not focused on his future. I'm focused on the right now. And right now, that man, he is so good. And so happy to have him here in Carolina. And y'all also are happy and should be happy about the way things are playing out. Now, speaking of the trade deadline, that's coming up on Tuesday, November 4th, so in about 3 weeks. Do the Panthers need to be buyers? Because the pass rush, according to y'all and all the stats, is not very good. Maybe Carolina should be interested in the pass rusher. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, back here on the weekly Wednesday mailbag on Locked on Panthers. We do this every single week. At me or DM me over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council to get your questions in for next week's edition of the show. Now over to Nick, a different Nick, not the Nick that I just answered the question from, but another Nick who's also asking about trades and what Carolina can do to build this roster and improve it, sitting here at 3-3 and fingers crossed 4-3 after this upcoming Sunday up there against the Jets, the 0-6 New York Jets, might add. The Jets who killed Carl Jets. If you know, you know. Okay, Nick asking, should the Panthers look into trading for a pass rusher if they want to compete against teams like the Bucs and the Bills? The pass rush has been a weakness of the defense as they can't get consistent pressure to the quarterback and could be a concern when playing better teams. Teams like the Dolphins and Jets should be doing fire sales soon, and a pass rusher like Bradley Chubb may become available. Pass rush was non-existent against Dak and company. And Will also asking, why is the Panthers pass rush non-existent? Is it a personnel problem, a scheme problem? I really don't know how they can't get to the quarterback with the talent they have on the defensive line. So let me answer some of those questions that Will just asked. Is it a personnel problem? I would say yes and no. We talked about this in the offseason. I had talked to someone up in Minnesota and just asked, what do you think about Patrick Jones II? He said, just a guy. Can help you out when it comes to run defense, but as far as a pass rusher, yes, he had an early moment last season, Minnesota, where he was just going scorched earth, but really just a guy. So the expectation for him never been a great pass rusher to be one moving forward, probably not realistic. DJ Wonnum showed you some juice there when he came back last year, having 4 sacks, and you thought maybe over the course of a full season that possibly he could be that kind of guy. And I do think you have to wonder, though, he was playing opposite of Jadeveon Clowney. It's not like Clowney came in and set the world on fire. I thought overall he was solid for Carolina, maybe overpaid just a bit, but you had to do that to do it. And did he play on Sunday? I was talking to somebody about this after the game. I honestly forgot he was in Dallas and don't recall him making any plays at all when he was back home. So, yeah, the Panthers definitely made the right decision there. If anyone's wondering, should they have blacked that back Clowney? Here's the thing, too. Like, as far as the personnel, you have 2 young pass rushers and Nick Scorton and Princely Muamielen. It's way too early to expect these guys to come out and to be plus players at the position. And you look even last year, Jared Verse, who I loved coming out of Florida State, he went in the first round to the Rams, and he was good, but it wasn't like he went out there and have a double-digit sack season. I think he only had like 5.5 sacks last year. So it's going to take some time there. It took time with Brian Burns. So they're still maybe a year, 2 years away from those guys realizing their potential to a big level. So got to be a little bit more patient there. I don't think the scheme necessarily is a problem. Dave Canales continuously has told you it's not the scheme. So if it's not the scheme, I guess it's the personnel, but I think the personnel is just below average to average as far as the veterans, and then too early. 6 games into this thing for the 2 rookies. So as far as will they be trading for a pass rusher and will they be buyers at the deadline, I don't expect that to happen. They do have the Jets game on Sunday, then the Bills and the Packers. So 3 games before Tuesday, November 4th. I believe at 4 p.m. is when the trade deadline is to make a move. And realistically, I mean, they should win on Sunday. And then after that, if they go 1-1 against Buffalo and Green Bay, I mean, let's ride. I know you're going to be fired up, especially the win against Buffalo. Like that of the 2, my preference is for them to beat Buffalo. I just absolutely hate the amount of people from Buffalo who love Buffalo, yet can't find work in Buffalo and now live here. Whatever, we'll deal with it next week. Joe Marino, the host of Locked On Bills, is one of those people, by the way. No shade, but shade. But you know, love our brothers and sisters, because it's actually funny because I was watching Sunday Night Football and they were doing the whole commercial about the company helping build the new stadium up there in Buffalo. And like, yeah, it's built by Buffalonians. And I was telling my fiance, I was like, actually, you know what you call someone from Buffalo? A charlatan, because they all live here. Enough of those. But I think that they're probably looking at 4-5, 5-4. I don't think they're going to win both of those games. If they get to 6-3, then man, I don't know. Maybe they should be really aggressive. But you just look at the roster build. They just paid Pat Jones. They could move on after this season, I believe, with the way the contract's structured. They just drafted 2 guys on night 2 of the draft back in April. They have DJ Wonnum. I don't look at them as wanting to add somebody at this point in time. I think they're good with that, what they have. And you may not be good with it. And certainly through 6 weeks, that has not yielded a ton of pressures, as they currently, according to PFF, are last in the NFL in pressure percentage at 24%. Now, if you look at Pro Football Reference, their models have Carolina at 8.4%, which is so bad. And they only have 5 sacks this season. That is the lowest in the NFL. And they have a 2.6% sack percentage so far this season. So, yeah, a long way to go there. I just think that right now, they're living with the young guys, and they have done a good job stopping the run. And really, with the scheme that Ejiro Vera runs, he wants to set the edge and stop the run. And that was a massive problem last year. You got to be able to do that, man. If you can stop the run, you have to earn the right to rush the passer. And so far, those 4 guys are earning the right. Just when they get that right into the opportunity, it's not really getting anywhere so far. But still 11 weeks left. We'll see how it plays out. Nathan, now asking a question, how far does this team have to go for them to start getting respect from the national media? It seems like the whole conversation with the Panthers wins are what's wrong with the other team rather than us showing improvement as a team. Do they deserve respect right now, Nathan? Like, honestly, and I'm not trying to throw shade at the organization or be negative, but like, come on. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2017. David Tepper has been one of the worst owners in the NFL since he's bought this team. The organization hadn't been 500 since week 10 of 2021. That was Cam Newton coming back for his second stint in Carolina. Winning this week would be the first time that they've had a 3-game winning streak since the beginning of the 2021 season. And of course, you look at the last couple of weeks, you just look at who they played. Like, they beat Miami, legacy franchise. There's a ton of talk about Mike McDaniel getting fired. Tua, what's his future going to be? You look at FanDuel, look at any sports book, like he's the most bet on, a favorite to get fired first. It's going to happen eventually here during the regular season, you would think. And then whenever you play Dallas, well, the story is, of course, going to be Dallas. And whenever you shut up Jerry Jones, of course, the story is going to be Jerry Jones didn't want to talk. So that's the kind of situation. And if they beat the Jets, it's the number 1 market in America. They're going to be 0-7. It's going to be the story more than Carolina's 4-3 and that they won 3 straight. But if they go out there and they beat the Bills and or the Packers, then the Panthers become a story. Because, oh, okay, Carolina's 3-game winning streak, possibly 4-game winning streak, possibly 5-game winning streak, or 4 out of 5, and they beat Super Bowl contenders in Buffalo and Green Bay. Maybe there's something going on down there in Carolina. That then becomes a story. But right now, they haven't earned the right to be in the headlines and to be the headline. I know Miami, they stink, but it's the Dolphins. Last undefeated team. It gets brought up every single year. It's Dallas. We know how it works with the sports networks. They're always going to talk about the Cowboys first and foremost. That's going to be the story. But just keep winning, man. They haven't won. And honestly, they don't deserve to be the story at this point in time. But if they keep winning and they're able to beat those teams like Buffalo and Green Bay, the supposed contenders, then it's going to be impossible to ignore this team. And remember, man, back in 2015, they were on 15-1. How long did it take until people started to take that team seriously? After they went 5-0 and beat Seattle, I think that's when it happened. And I was working at ESPN at the time, up at ESPN Radio, and that all year long, the conversation on SportsCenter, on ESPN Radio, was about how bad the NFC East was. Because the Giants were ass, the Redskins back then were ass, Cowboys are ass, Eagles are ass. That's all they talked about. Meanwhile, Carolina's going 15-1. Cam Newton's dabbing all over the place. They're taking team photos on the field, but it didn't really matter because they were more focused on the NFC East. That's just the reality of the situation. But you win, they can't ignore you then. All right, take a quick pause and come back here and answer the rest of your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions right here on Locked On Panthers. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, Getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. The app made it super simple. I could see the exact view from my seat before buying. I absolutely love that feature. I love zone deals too. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, download Game Time today. Okay, a couple more questions here on the weekly Wednesday mailbag here on Locked On Panthers. Again, at me, DM me over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council. Following the game on Sunday against the Jets to get your questions in for next week's edition of the show. Typically need to have them in by about 4 p.m. on Tuesday, as that's when I record later in the afternoon, early evening on Tuesdays, and get that show out early for the YouTube audience. All right, Preston, ask now, what's going on with Damani Richardson? I honestly thought he would be starting this season. I know Nick Scott is Ejiro Evera's guy, and honestly didn't have a bad game against Dallas. It kills you to say that, didn't it, Preston? Saved the touchdown, and other than that, if I don't hear Nick Scott's name called throughout the game, I'll take it. I thought Richardson played solid last year, especially as a tackler. Just curious your thoughts with him moving forward. Yeah, maybe it's somewhat surprising, but kind of taking a step back, looking back at last season, like Nick Scott really struggled, also dealt with an injury. You also look at guys like Jordan Fuller, had to remember his name. He dealt with an injury as well. There was veterans who just underperformed there at safety to the point where they had no choice but to give Damani Richardson an opportunity just based off of the injuries and just the performance of some of those guys. And he, looking at PFF, actually performed as the best safety for Carolina, but he also was an undrafted free agent, and they felt like they could better that position this offseason. They did that by going out there and getting Trevor Etienne from the Raiders, and then in the 4th round of the draft, they drafted Lathan Ransom, fresh off of a national championship there at The Ohio State University, and he was a multi-year starter and a guy they could bring in and play immediately. So that's what it is. They brought in somebody and paid him a good amount of money. They drafted somebody in the 4th round, and then they brought back Nick Scott. And I think that's probably the one that is surprising. I thought that with Nick coming back, it was going to be more in a special teams role. I was not expecting him to be a full-time starter there at a free safety spot. I didn't think that was going to happen. That's how it's played out so far. We have seen Lathan come in and play dime packages. We have seen a little bit of Damani the 1 week where Trevon Merrick had to fill in at that big nickel spot when Shaw Smith-Wade was out a couple weeks ago against Miami. We also saw Corey Thornton in there in the nickel when they went just to a traditional nickel as far as the size there. I just think that they got better at the position, and Ejiro prefers Nick Scott, who knows his scheme has been around longer, and Damani's just kind of gotten phased out. But it's also about competition. And if you're not better than those guys, they're not going to put you out there. So I don't think it's anything that he did wrong or really hasn't done. It's just there's other guys that they prefer at those spots at this point in time. Ryder now asking, what wide receiver do you think becomes a healthy scratch once Jalen Coker comes back off injury in these upcoming weeks? My prediction is Hunter Renfrow, but what do you think it will be? Or who do you think it will be? Yeah, so talk a little bit about this last week in preparation to Jalen Coker potentially making his debut against Dallas. That did not happen. Not sure how close he was. I asked Dave Canales about that on Monday. Didn't answer it. Just said he's close as far as coming back, and have to wait till Wednesday to find out where he's at then. I'll be out there at the facility on Wednesday for his press conference, and we'll find out more about that whole situation. I'm expecting Jalen Coker to make his debut this week. I'm expecting that to happen. And if that does happen, it's going to be Tedero McMillan, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker as the top 3 wide receivers. Maybe they go slower in phasing him in, but he's going to be the top guy. He's going to be one of the top 3 guys out there. After that, I feel pretty good about Bryson Tremaine. They've utilized him a lot in run blocking situations. Of course, he plays special teams as well. He's actually been called upon to be a decent receiver when they've needed him to. I think he's the fourth guy. So the fifth guy then comes down to Jimmy Horn Jr. and Hunter Renfrow. And I felt like last week that maybe it's going to be Jimmy, because Jimmy made a great play on that fourth down and they were able to use him in a run game as well. And he had finally gotten to the point where they felt comfortable with him and potentially he could play on special teams as a returner. Now, we have not seen him as a returner. We have seen Hunter Renfrow. We've seen him a couple of times earlier this season on one-offs as a punt returner. Then we saw it on Sunday, and he was punt returner against Dallas. And I still don't feel like he feels that comfortable back there, but they put him back there. And that has kind of changed the calculus for me because I felt like it was going to be Jimmy over Hunter. So right now, I'm going to just guess based off of they're still trying to figure out who the punt returner is going to be. They went with the vet, and they stuck with him, I believe, the whole time. Maybe they put Trevor Etienne back there one time. I'm going to guess they put Hunter Renfrow back there. I'm going to guess he's going to be the fifth guy. If they continue to only do five guys, maybe they find a way to have a sixth, just the way that they've utilized Jimmy. But how much is he going to play in the offense when they bring in Jalen? Maybe he could be that fourth guy, and Bryson's more of a run blocker and more special teamer. And then Hunter is only a special teams return guy. But then, so I don't know. I'm going to guess it's going to be Hunter is the guy who's going to be above Jimmy, and Jimmy will be the healthy scratch. And if that happens, yes, I know you're all going to lose your minds. Hopefully they can find a way to have all six, and then we'll see how they utilize those guys. Final question comes from Mark asking, could you break down your thoughts on the NFC South through a third of the year? Yes, I can do that. So looking at it right now, Tampa's sitting at 5-1. Atlanta's at 3-2, fresh off of a big win on Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. Carolina sitting at 3-3, and then New Orleans at 1-5. And if you just look at net EPA, the stat from True Media, Buccaneers are 5th in the NFL. Atlanta's 14th, Carolina's 21st, and New Orleans is 24th. And I will say this, the Saints actually have not been nearly as bad as I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be dreadful. Spencer Rattler's actually been fine. And if you look at it, the only game they got embarrassed in was that game against the Seahawks, but they were competitive when they played the Bills. They were competitive when they went out there and played the 49ers. And everyone's been talking about Drake May after that game on Sunday down in New Orleans. That was a 6-point win for New England. So the Saints are not as bad as I thought they were going to be, and probably a game that you should be a tad concerned about. I would chalk both of those up as wins for Carolina, but they're not going to be nearly as simple. And for Carolina, it's never that easy and simple for them to win those games. So I think New Orleans actually not too bad. Atlanta, really weird season. They go out there, they're competitive week one against Tampa, barely lose that game at home. They beat the Vikings. They then come out and put up a stinker against Carolina. And at the time, and this goes back to the question that I was asked earlier about why is the story about what's wrong with the other opponent. The Dolphins and the Cowboys, I didn't look at that game being like, what's wrong with Miami and Dallas? I was like, Carolina went out there and got it. The game against Atlanta, I was like, yo, what the hell are the Falcons doing? Because they just look bad. I felt like a lot of that was them. Certainly Carolina, they came out there, took care of business, but I was sitting there in the moment being like, man, the Falcons are just completely off in this game. They did not show up at all. And yeah, Carolina, they played well, but damn, I felt like a lot of it was Atlanta. The defense was great for Carolina. The offense wasn't really great at all. And then they go back and beat Buffalo on Monday, and they tried their damnedest not to win that game. The defense found a way to hold on. And then you also look at the fact that they beat Washington. That's back-to-back weeks after the embarrassment against Carolina here in Charlotte. So, yeah, I think they're going to be a wild card contender, and that will be a tough one on the road in a couple of weeks. So I'm not looking past the Falcons, even though I don't know what the hell that was a couple weeks ago. And then Tampa, clearly they're going to win the division. I don't see how it's not going to happen. Baker, right now, to me, 6 weeks in, should be the MVP. I don't have a vote. They're not going to vote on it until the end of the season. We won't find out until Super Bowl week at NFL Honors, but he's been great, and we don't need to relitigate how things played out here in Carolina with Baker. Happy for the guy, the way he's been playing down there in Tampa. Of course, it's unfortunate that he's doing it in the division with the Bucs, but he's had games where Mike Evans has been out. Chris Godwin's been out. Emeka Egbuka has been out. I think all three of those guys were missing on Sunday, and he found Tez Johnson, 154 pounds soaking wet, Tez Johnson, for a touchdown. He is finding ways to still sling it and put up big numbers and it offense not to take a step back. So they're really good. I think that they're going to win the division going away. And at the rate they're at, where they only lost against Philadelphia and they get a big win against 49ers and they beat the Seahawks in just a back and forth game out there in Seattle between Baker and Sam, I'm thinking that they're going to be maybe up there as possibly the top seed in the NFC. We'll see, because the injuries that they have at wide receiver are not long-term kind of injuries where they're not going to get those guys back. And the offensive line has had injuries as well, but I think that they're really good. So, yeah, to me, even only 2 games back at this point in time, not playing them until I think week 16 and 18, I don't think Carolina's going to be able to top Tampa in the division this year, but it'd be nice to be in it by that point in time. But yeah, I think Tampa's going to win the division. I think Atlanta could be a wild card contender. And then for Carolina, I asked Dave about this on Monday. Who are you guys? You said it'd take 4 to 6 weeks, and they're still gathering information, trying to clear up the picture. You get Coker back coming up here soon. You get maybe Court back in a couple of weeks, and you beat the Jets. Then you have Buffalo, and you also have Green Bay. Like, we'll find out after those 2 games, certainly, who the Carolina Panthers are. And if they're able to take one, hell, take both as well, then we're going to talk about that team maybe actually being a contender in a division, and at the very least for a wild card spot here in the NFC. So yeah, the NFC South, not too bad. All right, it's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe or follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, as I'm back here next Wednesday, once again answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. We'll be back tomorrow for another Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday, brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. John Butchko, the host of Locked On Jets. He will join me. Talk to you then.